Hello, on behalf of agcareers.com, I would like to thank you for joining us for our web seminar, Becoming an Interview Pro. My name is Bonnie Johnson, and I'm a marketing associate with agcareers.com. I will be serving as moderator for today's webinar. Our presenter will examine why preparation is the key to success in an interview. You'll learn about the evolution of interview styles and types, as well as common interview questions, coupled with the right responses. We're pleased to have Carolyn Lee as our presenter today. I will more formally introduce her and turn things over momentarily, but I would like to briefly review a few housekeeping items. A copy of the presentation is available in the Handouts pane in your GoToWebinar control panel. Feel free to download this for note-taking or future reference. Your lines are muted to help with timing and flow of the presentation. If you have an immediate question, we ask that you use the chat or question box that is part of your GoToWebinar panel. I will monitor the questions closely and try to address them as soon as possible. During the presentation, the slides will move automatically as the presenter shares the content. Please move your mouse around every once in a while to keep your computer from going into sleep mode. If for some reason you have to shut down or have problems, you may rejoin the workshop. You will just need to follow the same process to get started as before. Finally, after the workshop, I will be sending an electronic evaluation form. If you could fill it out, we'd greatly appreciate your feedback. Okay, that should be everything. Please allow me to introduce our presenter, Carolyn Lee. Carolyn is the Talent Solutions Manager for agcareers.com and has been with the company for 6 years. In that time, she has worked with both employers and job seekers, providing tools to connect candidates with career opportunities in agriculture. Carolyn holds a bachelor's degree from Queen's University and a master's degree in biochemistry from the University of Calgary, and is currently completing the Career Development Practitioner Program at Conestoga College. In addition to career development, Carolyn has also coached high-performance athletes and represented Canada in the sport of field hockey. Carolyn has always been passionate about helping individuals maximize their potential and helping identify the opportunities that are available to them. I will now turn it over to Carolyn to give us valuable insights on becoming an interview pro.
Great, thank you, Bonnie. I'm really pleased to be speaking to you all today. If you have any issues hearing me at all, please type something to Bonnie in the chat panel, and she will let me know if there are any sort of sound issues that hopefully we can resolve. So yes, I'm really pleased to be here today, and I'm hoping to provide you some information and content that will help you in your career search and through the interview process, which is usually the last stage before you find that perfect job. So I want to start with what we are all striving for, which is career satisfaction, and with just a short definition here, which is to be rewarded and enthusiastically engaged in work that adds value to others. There are many steps in the full job search process that all contain elements that will prepare you for the last few steps before finding your perfect career fit. The interview traditionally comes after you have searched for jobs and applied with a resume and cover letter and done the appropriate preparation for these steps. Some of the preparation for the job search and application will prepare you for the interview, and I will highlight some of these steps to assist you on becoming an interview pro. So I just wanted to give a bit of an overview here. Interviewing is a very broad topic, and it can be difficult to completely cover in an hour. So for this webinar, I will focus on the preparation I mentioned, as well as two specific types of interviews, the more commonly used ones, telephone interviews and behavioral interviews. And to finish up, I'll discuss how to close out an interview and to provide appropriate follow-up. So interviewing is, in a way, a sales job. You are selling your skills and assets to a potential customer who is the employer. And in order to sell effectively, you need to know what your customer is looking for. And without fail, all employers and customers are looking for value. And from the employment perspective, value is the combination of the candidate's competency, chemistry, and compensation. Competency is the combination of skills, knowledge, and expertise you bring to the role. Chemistry is what employers describe as that fit word, how well your personality and goals fit with the organization and team. And lastly, compensation, and is the wage you would be paid or are looking to be paid appropriate for what you bring to the table. And so employers are always looking to balance all three of these things before hiring. And hiring managers' standards are higher than ever before, and they expect you to know your value and have a clear sense of your vision for both near and midterm employment. Inability to articulate this vision and articulate this vision and be able to succinctly say it persuasively can knock you out of the running. And a lot of the preparation for an interview starts during the job search and resume writing process. For example, I'm going to skip over personality assessments and the types of jobs that you are applying to and why, but I will touch a bit on skills analysis, as this will impact your pre-interview prep, which includes composing a focus statement and preparing the benefits you can offer an employer versus features. And success in interviewing requires a two-pronged approach. You have to address the mechanics and the mindset, the visible and invisible elements of interviewing. And many job seekers focus only on the mechanics of the interview. For example, what's the right answer to this or that question? How do I follow up after the interview? How do I negotiate salary? And so on. And although these are important elements, they're only half of what you need. So what is a focus statement? A focus statement succinctly describes your career goals and aligns them with the goals and values of the employer or potential employer. An intentional focus statement will allow you to be, like I stated before, radically rewarded and enthusiastically engaged in work that adds value to others. And the final four words in that definition of career purpose, adds value to others, contain an important truth. Your work must bring value to others, specifically your company, colleagues, or customers, so that your career is in sync with marketplace demands. So when crafting a focus statement, you need to examine yourself. What jobs or industries excite you? What are your personal needs and values, as well as your targeted compensation? And a lot of this research has likely been completed by you during your job search. The key is to write it all down and organize your thoughts. There are many worksheets and resources out there that can assist you in organizing these ideas and thoughts. So, creating your focus statement. I mean, the focus statement can be wordy, as it is meant only for you as a starting point to guide you in your job search process. Your focus statement can be used in further exercises that will be useful in your upcoming interview. So you need to take a look at your motivation, and this combines the unique ingredients that will both energize you and motivate you through your job search, meaning, and this hones in on what you want as opposed to striving after the dreams of someone else. And essentially it's a map for you, and it keeps you on course as you make decisions about what interview opportunities to pursue. I will read this wordy statement, and just to make sure that everyone gets all of the content there. For example, I am committed to targeting opportunities that will use my branch management skills in the field of financial services, specializing in mutual funds, where I can develop management and marketing strategies that will grow shareholder value and investors' worth. And this type of position is in sync with my personality preferences for intuiting and thinking, seeing the big picture, brainstorming, making decisions based on logical facts. It meets my core values and needs of intellectual stimulation, leadership, logic, and monetary reward, with a salary in the range of $75,000 to $90,000. So like I said, it is a wordy statement, but it's for you. It's for you to really get all of that information down on paper and keep that in mind as you're going through your job search and looking for potential employers. So now that you have a roadmap and a goal in mind, this is where you do the preparation to communicate your value to potential employers. And this is developing success stories. And success stories are an anecdote or account providing evidence that you have the knowledge, hard and soft skills, and motivation to excel in the target job. You want to use the "it's about them, not me" perspective when describing your stories. You're going to write success stories about your work for each of your past employers if possible. And you want to assign themes to these stories that underscore the competencies needed for the target position or target positions that you're looking for. And you want to write success stories for non-work experiences or if you're just entering the workforce. And numbers do speak louder than words. You want to have these stories have some sort of quantification if possible, with numbers, dollar amounts, productivity measurements, comparisons, and the like. And then you want to pace the stories so that they're about 2 to 3 minutes in length. And this inventory is something that you can pull from in all scenarios, whether it be interviewing, networking, various different avenues, but they're very valuable to have for you in your full job search process. So how do you create these success stories? So benefits explain what's in it for them, the employer. And I'm going to use some examples here. High-paid advertising copywriters know that benefits sell, whereas features can put you to sleep. And I'm going to give you some examples here. They're not on the slide, but some examples of comparing features and benefits by using career coaching services as an example. So a few features that a career coach might have would be a certified career management coach, a nationally certified resume writer, or a graduate of Career Coach Academy. You'll notice that these features are title-oriented, which can be a little bit boring. And features might carry some weight, but they don't really describe the benefit of what a career coach can do. On the other hand, these statements describe the benefits, helping people who feel stuck in their careers uncover options that can move them from drudgery to dream job, equipping job seekers with insider strategies that shorten the time it takes to find a new job, and helping people eliminate the guesswork and frustration from career transition and job search. And in the chart here on the slide, I just included some example benefit words that can kind of help you get started. You want to look at positive, sometimes verbs are a great way to start: accelerate, build, eliminate, improve. You really want to incorporate these types of words into your success stories. And then some questions to answer while you're trying to create your inventory would be: what are you most proud of in your career? In what way did you help your employer save money? What kinds of work activities caused you to lose track of time? When did you go above and beyond the call of duty? What was the most difficult assignment you received? How did you handle it? And if you had a difference of opinion with a professor, how did you handle it? And you'll notice that actually some of these questions might be something that you've come across in an interview before. And that's a really great place to start, because this is a great way to describe your value to these potential employers. Once you have your inventory of success stories, you're going to want to move on to how to communicate these things. It's likely that you have more than 3 key skills or strengths for your target position. However, it's unlikely that your networking contacts or interviewers will be able to remember much more than 3 things about you. I've got an example here. One interviewer who requested anonymity admitted that after interviewing a string of candidates and taking a ton of notes in the process, he and his fellow interviewers couldn't even remember the name of their star candidate, the one that they really, really wanted. And I'll give you some tricks for using some basic tricks, basically, and other memory-enhancing items for your listeners further on in the presentation. Recognize, however, that when it comes to verbal delivery of your strengths, simple is better. And so when we look at sound bites like success stories, they'll help you to feel prepared in any networking or interview position or situation. Sound bites should be short, from 20 seconds to 2 minutes, and can be used for these types of situations to convey your unique strengths in an interview, articulate your goals and help contacts understand what you're looking for, and to offer a brief, value-packed introduction to yourself. And so we can also call that a verbal business card. That's a very quick way of getting some very key points across. On the other hand, a more lengthy one, which is still only a couple minutes long, would be the mini bio, which some people will call the elevator pitch, which is a short message between 1 and 2 minutes. The elements can be mixed and matched depending on the scenario that you're in. And so all of the preparation work that you've done for your success stories and focus statements should provide you the content and details to be able to complete this and practice these before you're in a networking or an interview situation. So once you've gotten to the point where you've got some verbal business cards and mini bios ready to use, we got to get to the visual career brand. And to confidently act the part, you'll need a clear description of the image that you want to project. And one of the best ways to do this is to look for role models. Who in the industry do you admire? And who is successfully doing the type of work you want to do? And even better, who is a notch above the role you'd like to be in? And when employers are ready to interview, they usually go to the desk of their top performers. Hiring managers analyze top performers to determine the behaviors and competencies that make them so successful. And in turn, those behaviors and competencies will be the high watermark you're measured against. So if you want to find and emulate a successful role model, you will improve your chances for interview success. And a picture is worth 1,000 words. And when it comes to meeting influential contacts and potential employers, you speak 1,000 words even before you say anything. So approach your business wardrobe as if you were mute, and the wardrobe were doing all of the talking. With business attire across the board these days, a one-size-fits-all recommendation just doesn't really fit. You just need to use good judgment, assess the type of companies you'll be targeting, and dress to their standards. Image experts offer varying advice regarding dressing for interviews, truthfully. Some say you should dress a little nicer than the norm for the business. Others advise you to dress the same as your interviewer, and either can work. But I guess basically you just want to, it's best to err on the side of dressing a little nicer than the norm, essentially. And before we get to the actual mechanics of the interview, I just wanted to touch a little bit on attitude and the mental side of preparing for interviewing. And I wanted to talk about attitude and buoyancy. And really, buoyancy is how quickly you regain your self-confidence and recover from disappointment. People with a high degree of buoyancy display several common characteristics. They're purposeful, they're confident of their value, persevering, proactive, optimistic, etc. However, buoyancy doesn't require perfect and unwavering self-confidence, but just the skills to regain it in an appropriate amount of time. I'll use a Henry Ford quote here. Whether you believe you can do a thing or not, you are right. So when you're faced with a problem or an obstacle, ask yourself these questions. How might this be a good thing? What's the silver lining in this? What's the flip side to this? What opportunities are present in this challenge? And what can I learn from this situation? If you're a casualty of a corporate layoff or left your job for reasons other than your own volition, you might be experiencing some negative emotions. And if so, it's important that you deal with them before they derail you. Interviewers can sense it when interviewees are worried, scared, sad, or angry, and so on. And they can spot candidates who harbor resentment against past employers, and you just don't want to be that person. These candidates have a slim chance of being hired, as employers are suspicious that they'll speak negatively about others down the road. So what you can do is you can, to kind of get over a negative emotion, acknowledging it, objectively note that the emotion is there, expressing it in a socially acceptable manner, releasing it, let go and move forward. So, getting to the actual interview. You don't have to memorize answers to over 100 different interview questions. If you've done the preparation ahead of time and preparing your inventory of success stories and practiced, you really should be able to pull any stories from your inventory to answer any questions that should come your way. Now, for the purpose of this webinar, there are various different types of interviews, like I mentioned at the beginning. You'll see I've listed quite a few different ones here. But for the sake of today, I'm just going to touch on telephone screening interviews and behavioral and competency-based interviews, which are the most common types that people deal with. So in telephone interviewing, the name of the game is staying in the game. Interviewers use telephone screening to pare down their list of applicants. They are probing for reasons to scratch candidates from the list. And telephone interviews are usually sort of a just the facts interview. Be wary of volunteering information beyond what is asked, as it could work against you. But also, this is a good opportunity for you to ask questions of the employer to find out if this is actually a job that you really want. So to speak to that last point, you want to determine whether the position is of interest to you as well. So it's just kind of a meet and greet, kind of pre-screening to try and set up the face-to-face interview if you're interested. So any telephone call from a recruiter, networking contact, or employer is a form of an interview, and you should treat it accordingly. Your goal for the telephone screen is to provide sufficient information and value to the employer so that you're offered a face-to-face interview. If you're not offered one, ask for one. You want to listen as though you can't see. And you want to avoid background noises, pets, kids, radio music, and so forth. And so for telephone interviews, you want to operate from a very specific zone, a place where you can work in quiet and with concentration. When on the telephone, you need to try and add warmth to your voice by genuinely caring about the interview at the end of the line, and you want to use verbal nods and avoid long pauses. And another point I like to add as well is smiling while talking on the phone does convey warmth over the phone. So if you're smiling physically, it does come through in your voice. You'll want to monitor your talking. The length of your responses should be a bit shorter than they would be for a face-to-face interview. And you want to add energy to your voice by articulating clearly, for example, saying going and not gonna, or by standing up and gesturing. You want to breathe from your diaphragm and strive for the best voice and resonance that you can. And then you want to close the phone interview with a warm thank you, and then send a performance-based follow-up. Be sure to get the person's name and contact information for this purpose. And another point I did include on this slide is to follow the lead of the interviewer. So if he or she is businesslike and wants only facts, you should match that manner. If they're more conversational, it's appropriate to respond in kind and in manner and try and build rapport that way as well. So the behavioral competency interview. As the term behavioral interview implies, they're looking for behaviors that are equated with success. They're also after something more important, the thing that's considered the driver of those behaviors, which is competencies. And competencies are the capabilities, skills, and talents that make the behavior easy, enjoyable, and almost addicting. So during a behavioral interview, candidates are asked a series of standardized questions to elicit 3 key pieces of data. Situation or circumstances, what was the context in which the behavior or action took place? Behavior, what actions were actually taken in the situation? And the result or outcome, what was the bottom line of the action taken? And so like I mentioned in the slide here, you want to mine the job description before the interview to try and determine what competencies the employer is looking for. And then it's easy to prepare then your success stories that you've already created to match these competencies and have those practiced ahead of time. And you'll be ready to answer any questions that would be where they're wanting to cover certain skills and competencies. So like I said, it's wise to prepare by analyzing and making an educated guess as to what those employers are looking for. Job postings and job descriptions can be an excellent source of identifying job-specific competencies, in addition to company websites or any information you can find online about the company. So for the actual face-to-face interview, there's a few, I have a few tips here. So you want to vary the length of your responses. You don't want to continue, you don't want to talk on and on. It's okay to have some lengthy responses as long as not every question is not answered with a 5-minute long answer. Avoid vague statements. You want to be very specific, and avoid stating opinions and personal beliefs. You want to stick to the facts, and always keep your value and these competencies in mind at all times. And what I've done here is I've listed some very common competencies, regardless of position, industry, job type, that most employers are looking for. And these are the types of things that you practice your success stories and your sound bites to match a lot of these competencies, and you'll be probably using them regardless of the different positions you could be applying for. If you're trying to, if you're investigating different career paths, these competencies are fairly standard, and it's a good job. It's a great starting place as you're looking to craft your success stories and come up with some sound bites and mini bios that kind of cover a lot of these items. I won't read them all out, but they are in the presentation for you here. I want to talk a little bit about connecting with the interviewer, which is a really big part of the interview process, apart from, determining your value and going through competencies and compensation and fit. Well, it does go a little bit with the fit. Connecting is all about communicating and not just giving out information, but getting through to people. To effectively communicate, we must realize that we are all different in the way that we perceive the world and use this understanding as a guide to our communication with others. At first, it might feel daunting to figure out how people perceive the world, but it will come more easily as you carefully observe and listen to people. So if you're in an interview and can't recall specific information, about even, some success stories or the competencies, and that happens to people all the time. Don't worry. All you need to do is the simple act of being aware that people have different values and temperaments will put you far ahead and keep you calm. And that's one tip I give to people when it comes to interviewing. It's a temptation to do a lot of talking and try and get as much information across as you can, but you have to listen. You have to listen to what the interviewer is asking you, and sometimes you have to respond and adjust on the spot. So being aware and connecting in that way will really put you far ahead. So now I want to touch on addressing difficult questions, which is something that gets asked all the time. And rarely are there candidates with perfect employment backgrounds, spotless reputations, or stellar records of contribution. Everyone's got something in their history that, isn't maybe their best feature, or something that they necessarily are not maybe overly proud of. And some questions that you could get asked possibly could be, employers sometimes, how do I put this, don't always ask legal questions. And so how do you deal with this when you're asked something highly inappropriate? The best option for answering, say, awkward or possibly illegal questions is to avoid a direct answer if the question has the slightest chance of hurting your candidacy. What you want to do is address the underlying concern. You want to accentuate a positive character trait or skill in your answer. And don't say more than you need to. You don't have to tell employers anything they're not legally authorized to ask. So if you do have something in your past, in past employment history that is maybe a difficult situation, I think practicing a response to those types of questions is a great idea. So here are some examples here. You have a gap on your resume between your last two employers. What did you do during this time? Why was your employment period with this company such a short time, or have you ever been fired? And truthfully, while you want to keep things short and maybe don't want to be, direct with some points with some of those questions, honesty is really the best policy. And so sometimes, if you can, to preemptively bring up any situations, it will keep the conversation on your terms. You need to stay positive. You never want to badmouth or blame others, and you just really want to stay optimistic and upbeat, and don't let those types of difficult questions derail you in an interview, especially if it's a position that you really, really want. So here are some example answers to some of these difficult questions that you could be asked. You want to keep them concise, positive, and short. So gaps in resume, it's very common to hear answers that someone is taking maternity leave, caring for children, caring for family members who possibly were ill, taking time off for travel, moving, studying, going back to school, or volunteering. Short employment is another one that can come up. Avoid saying anything negative about a former employer, like I mentioned, or it will look like you're not taking responsibility for yourself. But some of the best reasons for leaving a job after a short duration, if it's, and one item definitely is it could be a contract job, and if it was a contract job, that's a fairly easy answer to give. But to leave positions, you maybe wanted to learn more, earn more, grow more, work more, or commute or travel less, or for family reasons or relocation. So just really take a look at these possible question marks that could be on your resume and really come up with some concise ways to address them. And then post-termination, the employer's concern is whether you were dismissed for lack of performance or an inability to get along with people. And this is the best time to really use the preemptive strike. Find a way to bring this up early on and on your own terms. Describing a situation where you didn't see eye to eye with an employer and, deciding to move on, or it just wasn't a great fit, and then move on. And don't really dwell on it too long, because it's just not something you really do want to dwell on too long in that scenario. So here are some example closing statements and questions. So closing is a very important part of the interview. In a sales transaction, sales professionals are taught to close the sale. And this is the point near the end of the sales process where the seller asks the prospect to say yes. In an interview, the close is designed to make it logical and easy for the employer to say yes to you. It should never be manipulative, pressure-packed, or anything like that. Because the employer holds the decision-making power, it would be inappropriate for you to be pushy or badger them into offering a position. More harm than good would come from a strategy like this. It is, however, appropriate to do the following. Respectfully gain agreement from the employer that you have what they need, close any gaps between what the employer wants and what you can deliver, understand the company's interview process, express your desire for the position and ask for the job, and keep up the momentum and communication with the employer. So here are some examples here. Thanks for providing more details on the company and position. I'm confident my background will be critical to the success of the priority projects you mentioned. I'm curious, though, what you sense is what are my greatest strengths for the position? Or what would it take to assure you I would be the best person for this position? Or what is the next step? Can we set that up? Or I'm extremely interested, although I'm looking at a couple of opportunities right now, this appears to be the one where I could make the biggest contribution. Or I'd like to be able to follow up with you as additional ideas from our discussion come to mind. Is email or phone contact best for you? And it's always appropriate to send a performance-based thank you follow-up note the same day that you interview. So in conclusion, like I said, prepare, prepare, prepare. And when it comes to interviewing, you're probably going to want to spend at least 5 hours in preparation, learning about the company, preparing your focus statements, success stories, and career brand. Now, that being said, the items here that we went through at the beginning, the focus statement, success stories, and career brand, a lot of that preparation, you're not going to be repeating that for every interview that you go to. So as you go through the interview process, and if you're going to quite a few interviews, the preparation time will definitely decrease. But in general, it's a good rule of thumb to really spend that amount of time. And even if you have your inventory of success stories created, spending a lot of time really trying to match those competencies out of the job description and company with what you have crafted from your own experience, and practicing those stories verbally will really help you get ahead in the interview process. Customize your communications. We really only touched on the 2 types of interviews today, the telephone interview and the behavioral. So you really need to be aware of the type of interview and prepare accordingly. for example, I don't know if you remember on that slide, you know, there are lunch and dinner interviews as well, and that's a whole different preparation as you prepare for eating a meal with someone who is potentially going to hire you. So you really need to prepare, be aware of the type of interview you're going into, and make sure to ask questions ahead of time to make sure you are prepared and know how many people are interviewing you and hopefully their names ahead of time. Sleep. And this is maybe a no-brainer, but I just need to mention it. Being well-rested and alert is essential. You want to be mentally sharp for an interview. You want to be able to recall any of your success stories or your mini bio or your focus statement when you need to, and to be able to stay alert and be able to react and adapt with the interviewer as you're going through that process. And lastly, the post-interview. Follow up with those interviewers, and last but not least is you need to analyze your performance. It would be an ideal world if we all did a thorough personality assessment, industry analysis, chose the industry and the job we wanted, applied, interviewed, and instantly got that first job. And that is a very rare occurrence that I don't know if I've ever heard of many people who've done that. So you need to take your interview and do a post-interview analysis, and you need to do it right away. So you need to analyze the questions that were asked, the answers you gave. You need to be fairly strict on your analysis of that and really try and learn from that moving forward, what you did wrong, what you did right, and really take a look at that to improve each time you go through the interview process. So on that note, I am on the last slide here, and I will thank you all for listening, and I will pass it back over to Bonnie.
Okay, thank you, Carolyn. We hope you found this information valuable as you go about your career search. If you do have further questions about interviews or agcareers.com or your career search in general, feel free to email us at agcareers@agcareers.com, and we will definitely get back to you with any information that you need. If you haven't already done so, we encourage you to set up your free job seeker account on agcareers.com. If you do so, you'll be able to upload your resume to our database, save jobs so you can go back and apply later, and you can also track your application history and more. If you are interested, we also invite you to subscribe to our career cultivation blog. There's a lot of helpful advice several times a week with tips on your career search to that. And if you just go to agcareers.com, underneath the job seeker menu, there's a link for the job seeker blog. Again, thank you for coming. Please watch your email inbox for our follow-up evaluation. We greatly appreciate your feedback on today's webinar as we go forward in planning future webinars for job seekers. And thank you again, and have a fantastic day, everyone.
Thank you for me as well. Have a great day.